Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, and a rather nice week to coincide with the nice crypto week, nice stocks week. So, yeah, crypto side up 11.4% or £43,000. So, very, very nice. Bitcoin sort of went during the week and sort of spurred a reasonable altcoin rally, although a lot of my altcoins have been quite well walloped sort of previous weeks, so I'll come back to that. Looking at the CoinShares report, it was sort of positive, but not quite as good as some of the previous weeks. 1 billion in 1.03 billion in weekly inflow. This was sort of mostly Bitcoin, but quite a lot of Ethereum. 790 on Bitcoin and 226 on Ethereum. The multi-asset funds seeing a small outflow, which is surprising. And then 21 million into Solana, 10.5 into XRP. So Solana a little bit more than XRP, which hasn't been all that often. Another 1.6 into Sui, and then some small amounts sort of elsewhere. Still a little bit of short Bitcoin. This does move about. Country-wise, sort of similar to the last few weeks, really. Outflows from a lot of the countries, but quite a bit going into Germany and Switzerland as well. So a little bit surprising. Looking at this week's, just sort of working backwards, we have the Solana, just the one ETF, this Rex Osprey one. So you saw 4 days of inflows out of the 5, 15 million out on Thursday, but yeah, some reasonable numbers, and it's had nearly 70 million go in there in total for sort of, 7 days. So not too bad at all. Ethereum starting to pick up again as well. 5 days of pretty much across the board inflows. One small, very small outflow day from Fidelity, sort of almost a zero really. But yeah, 3 days, sort of Wednesday to Friday, very strong from BlackRock. Haven't sort of seen many triple figure inflows from BlackRock, and they got a 158, a 300 million, and 137, so pretty good. Grayscale, still strange goings on with Grayscale, some double figure inflows into the new one, but 29 million into the old Grayscale at 2.5% fee. I'll keep highlighting it every time because it's weird. Presumably sort of day trading or arbitrage or something, but there you go. And Bitcoin, a slow start to the week and then a remarkably strong finish. Sort of read BlackRock and some of the others sort of seeing small but positive inflows, a little bit coming out of ARK, but they had sort of decent amount in last week. And then towards the end of the Thursday and Friday, you had sort of decent amounts across the board, 400 odd from BlackRock, 300 million into Fidelity, and 268 into ARK. So sort of quite spread across the board, and gave a 1.175 billion figure. And then Friday it was basically all BlackRock, 950 million, and some inflows sort of scattered around all the others. And this gave what I believe was two 1 billion plus days in a row for the first time. We sort of had a couple, I think, 1 billion days sort of in the earlier days, maybe one since, and yeah, we never got 2 in a row. So potentially very positive news sort of off the back of this large gain. People piling in, presumably some of this, some of this ETF buying sort of added to the gain. So yeah, very positive. So on the treasury companies, as we're all calling them now, I've been looking at Michael Saylor's sort of feed just to get a feel of these, because he does tweet nearly all of them alongside endless memes of him, or AI generated photos. I suppose they're not even really memes. A lot of people were sort of reporting and saying, Saylor teases another buy. Not sure where people were getting that from this post. Some weeks you just need to hodl. You know, why that would mean that he's bought a load, I don't know. I think that's his way of pre-warning I haven't bought anything. But yeah, then they came out on the Monday and said we haven't bought anything. Reports 14 billion in total Bitcoin appreciation for Q2. That's a sort of, you know, a side comment to say we haven't bought any, but it's been quite well, going quite well in Q2. So, fair enough. He had buying elsewhere. Metaplanet buying 2,205. So that's pretty big. It's bigger than some, some of the MicroStrategy buys really. 238 million. Their average is pushing towards 100,000. So even some of the earlier players are sort of coming up closer to current price, although price is now 18,000 above that. You had the Smarter Web Company, the UK sort of big hot topic at the moment in the Bitcoin stock space. Year-to-date Bitcoin yield 26,000%. So we shouldn't get caught up in yield because it isn't yield. Yeah, they bought 226, now hold exactly 1,000. So yeah, not just Metaplanet sort of playing little games with their numbers. Metaplanet got to 15,555 and Smarter Web Company got to 1,000 exactly. Whether it makes the maths easier, don't know. Blockchain Group bought 116, and yeah, that was Semler Scientific bought 187, and yeah, Strategy didn't buy any, but they did announce a 4.2 billion at the market program. I think this is one of their preferred shares again, STRD. Not sure whether that pays a dividend. I didn't look into that one, but do still think that they'll be selling some Bitcoin at some point, and that will create a lot of negative headlines. Yeah, he bought. There's another one as well, DDC. I think this was a Chinese company. Bought 230 Bitcoin. They now hold 368. So they're a very new company to this. And yeah, I think that was it for the week. You had some more debt raises, but they haven't bought yet. And yeah, some lovely pictures of Michael Saylor, of course. Another H100 group bought 46. I think he's just retweeting all of them now. You had another Smarter Web Company buy as well. Another 275. So that's two in a week. They're sort of hotting up a little bit. But yeah, it's treasury companies at the moment. What we probably should get more excited about is the potential US regulation. Looks like the stablecoin bill is all but done, sort of pretty much ready to go to President Trump for signing. But they have the market structure bill, and I think they have one more as well. They were saying 3 bills being discussed at least this week. But you have, the Genius Act, I think they're calling it the Clarity Bill, which is sort of a first go at market structure. And yeah, they're sort of talking about a few different bits. The Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, quite a mouthful, but we don't want CBDCs, and the current government don't seem to be for that as well. So that was interesting. You get in the same week, the Democrats are launching an what are they calling it? An anti-corruption bill, basically targeted at Donald Trump and sort of various other people using their position to sort of fill their own pockets, basically, which I guess isn't all that false considering the sort of Trump meme coin and Melania meme coin and that sort of thing. So yeah, they've maybe got a small point, but I don't think this is going to go particularly well with the current government and crypto holders. It seemed interesting as well. We know Dubai are sort of pushing crypto quite a bit. A lot of people sort of moving there because they're still, believe, zero tax, entirely zero tax. I saw Germany actually. If you said if you hold to more than 12 months, you can sell crypto with no tax still. Whether they're sort of just overlooked it, I can't imagine they have. But yeah, it seems strange that they'd be sort of looking to potentially attract crypto people as a sort of basically, they are the EU. But yeah, very unusual. But Dubai looking to tokenize real estate a lot more. They're sort of getting into this. It looks like it's being done on sort of one or two smaller blockchains, but quite a bit on XRP. So XRP is starting to get some real use. They were sort of auctioning off basically fractions of apartments in Dubai, and they were sort of sold out in minutes. So it's very, very popular. I suppose if they're only doing like a couple of properties from what it looks like, yeah, sale of 2 apartments, the entire offering sold out within minutes. Yeah, real estate is very popular over there. So yeah, quite interesting, and interesting to see it being done on XRP. Really, didn't think that was, always thought it was more of a banker token. Obviously, they want to branch out and sort of justify that incredibly large market cap. This one didn't seem a huge surprise, I suppose. Tether sort of somewhat abandoning lesser used blockchains, wanting to focus their resources, refocus their resources. They're saying they are sort of removing liquidity from OmniLayer, Bitcoin Cash SLP. Surprised they were ever on that. Kusama, EOS, and Algorand. Looks like EOS have now rebranded. Used to have some EOS back in the day, and now it looks rather dead. But yeah, they're sort of redistributing some of this. Looks like there was barely any on there. Review of balances across the affected blockchains says OmniLayer had 82 million. If they're at sort of 150 billion of USDT now, that's tiny. Bitcoin Cash had less than 1 million, and all the others had, Kusama 250,000, EOS 4 million, and Algorand less than 1 million. So, yeah, basically they're not getting used. There's no point in sort of carrying on holding sort of small amounts of liquidity. I think they're saying Algorand basically use USDC. They've got 73 million in USDC, less than 1 million of Tether, so might as well just leave them to USDC. But yeah, Tether, obviously the big player still. This was an interesting point I saw made during the week. The funding rates, you got Bitcoin sort of pushing through all-time highs up to 118,000. But this is, it looks like, not sort of retail going massively 10x, 20x, 100x leverage long, because you would have funding rates very high. You obviously have to pay an amount of interest to go super long like that. The longer you want to go, the more it costs. And yeah, if you look at sort of current, these current green levels, interest rates are quite low for it. It was sort of much higher around the Trump election, and it was even higher at the sort of peak 70. That was the 70,000 peak at the launch of the ETFs. So yeah, that's a positive sign, I suppose. People aren't sort of going into a complete frenzy. You look sort of over the last month, quite a few days in June, you had negative funding rates, which from what I understand, means on the whole more people are shorting than going long. So you could obviously it's picked up a little bit since there, but as you saw, it's nowhere near the sort of previous levels. But you would have to say this sort of wouldn't be seen as euphoria, even if it is all-time highs. A lot of people, I watched Scott Melker's Macro Monday, and you always have Mike McGlone there sort of saying we're at max, excessive euphoria in the crypto market, and sort of think he just gets that purely from people like Michael Saylor being bullish and sort of, you know, snippets here and there of people being aggressively long. But if the majority of retail aren't sort of aggressively long to the extent that they were before, even just in November, and certainly at the sort of push to 70k, then yeah, I wouldn't call this sort of mega euphoria. It's across all exchanges. You can drill down to sort of various, various exchanges. Bybit, sort of very similar to the total. Binance never really went short, apart from one day, sort of in June, and then maybe slightly higher. And sort of the others are sort of largely smaller. Deribit is the more derivatives focused one, obviously. They don't really do spot from what I gather, and they look sort of fairly similar to Binance, really. But I mean, just in sort of 3 or 4 weeks ago, they were at flat to negative funding rates. So yeah, I thought that was something good to focus on at least. Still getting very volatile ups and downs in the Bitcoin hash rate since I switched to looking at this chart because it's a little bit more granular than the blockchain charts. So yeah, you do see a lot of ups and downs where it used to sort of give a bit more of a smoothed out average. I think I prefer this, more of the ups and downs. This is the last month, and yeah, it has gone slightly down. Down below 800 exahash again, but yeah, went to over 1,000 or 1 zettahash. I'm guessing this is. Yeah, the last sort of week has been reasonably okay, but you can certainly see it's got a hell of a lot more erratic over the last month compared to sort of what it was. It was up and down 50, in a sort of 100 exahash range, whereas it's now going from sort of, well, that was sort of one spike low, I suppose, but it's certainly going from the mid 700s to 1100. So yeah, very volatile. On the difficulty, we did have the sort of predicted spike back up. So it was 126.4 last month. We dropped down to just under 117, and we've came right back to 126.27, and we'll be there for the next 2 weeks. So yeah, a little bit of respite for the miners, slightly lower electricity cost for 2 weeks, and we're now sort of back to where we were. Obviously, this happened yesterday, so the fact that hash rate has dropped, they're given the next predicted adjustment on July the 27th, Sunday, 2 weeks today. They're saying, it's running too slowly and we'll have to adjust difficulty back down 8.4%. So yeah, that's even lower than where it was now, but it's only been going 1 day, and I'm guessing that will smooth itself out over the next few days. Presumably we get another rise in hash rate again. I don't know whether this is sort of foreign countries like turning off overnight or whatever they're doing. I think the US guys tend to run 24/7, so maybe it's countries with solar power or something, and they don't want to mine sort of at night, or yeah, could be anything really. This is potentially more stocks than crypto, I suppose, but it does US sort of inflation certainly affects crypto quite a bit. If we were to get a surprise rate cut, I'm sure it would give a huge boost to crypto. So obviously keep an eye on it. The Trueflation US index down at 1.74% now, so this is reasonable amount lower than the official 2.4% number. Had sort of spiked up, never went above the official number, got to 2.27% a couple of weeks ago, and has now come right the way back down again. So not quite as low as it had been, sort of 1.2, 1.3%. That was very low, but yeah, good to see it come back down again. You've obviously got quite a lot of calls for Jerome Powell to resign, which can't imagine he's going to do, but he may sort of get bored with all of this constant criticism for, the next 10 months it's basically going to be, unless he sort of suddenly starts cutting rates. But yeah, they want rates like 4% lower than they are now, not 0.25% and then hold for a while. So yeah, we'll see. I'll be surprised if he does resign, but yeah, these inflation numbers certainly do help. And I suppose if the official number comes down and they maybe do a cut, I think it's at the end of this month, then yeah, that would probably sort of pacify, pacify Trump and everyone for a little bit. UK side, of course, looking remarkably worse. I think the Trueflation are a sort of UK company, so they do a few indexes, sort of Argentina and a couple of other countries, but yeah, they give you the UK one as well, which is quite nice. This isn't going to affect crypto or global stocks really at all, but being in the UK, it's nice to sort of focus on. And yeah, it looks awful. It was negative. We don't. I suppose we don't actually want a long period of deflation, but we had a very small, short period of negative on Trueflation at least. Wouldn't come out in the official numbers, but yeah, certainly since October we went back into positive and have then just been rising and rising and rising. Some of this down to energy costs, I believe, but yeah, up to 3.54% now on last year. Even that's lower than the official figures at 4%. So wanting to be at 2, I think everyone is still saying 2% is the goal. No one wants to sort of admit that it probably needs to be higher than that if we're, going to have this erosion of debt, sort of grow our way out of the debt and debt holders lose, basically. Getting inflated away, yeah, it needs to be higher than 2%. So, don't know, maybe they'll just constantly say 2% is the goal and just, act as if it isn't. Watch their actions rather than listen to their words type thing. And looking at the liquidity chart, I think it's a matter of time before we get another Raoul Pal. Was it this easy, tweet? Because yeah, you said sort of Bitcoin needed to move up reasonably substantially very, very soon because the delayed M2 chart that they use had sort of obviously been rocketing up and Bitcoin hadn't been, so it was getting closer and closer to sort of basically decoupling. If it just carried on in that sort of range, then liquidity or M2 supply rocketing up, you'd have to say yeah, that's not really working anymore. But yeah, you got a big spike in sort of 3 months ago, from 3 months back from July. That sort of puts that here, and yeah, you have had a sort of corresponding large increase in Bitcoin, around the same time. So still a bit of a way to go. Sort of needs to go to 130 to 135 in relatively short order if it's going to sort of keep the similar correlation that it's had in the past. I've been mentioning that I keep sort of tracking this from really the beginning of last year, beginning of 2024, because that was when the ETFs launched, and I think that was pushing it sort of more into TradFi really. You got your BlackRocks and Fidelities sort of buying pretty much every week, and yeah, I think that's just moved it more into that sort of space. Obviously, I've zoomed out before and showed the sort of all-time chart on here, and it sort of does, somewhat correlate, but it does seem much tighter since the ETF started, basically. So, yeah, still positive on this. It does show, if we're going to roughly follow it, obviously not day to day, tick to tick, but it shows what would be quite an aggressive move, I suppose, in the next 2 months, a rise to 170,000. Yeah, from 117, that would be a hell of a move. And as I say, sort of if it's going to keep correlated reasonably tightly, then sort of need a move to 135 within the next couple of weeks, really. So we'll see. Was this rise to 117 just the start? So coins for the week, as I say, it was sort of altcoin week for the most part. Bitcoin up just over 10%. Sol up 10.8, not on quite as well as some of the others. Ethereum up 18.6%. Chainlink up 18%. Helium up 42%. The metrics do seem to be quite good. I haven't shown them today, but yeah, they've been sort of on the rise. Helium had an appalling sort of month or so. So yeah, it's 42% off the lows, but he's still way, way down from sort of a couple of months ago. So not getting too excited on that. Similarly with most of the other Sol altcoins, really. Jito actually hasn't moved much at all this week. It's up about 0.6%. Radium up 28%. Metaplex up 32%. And Honey up 23%. But yeah, again, all of those are sort of up this week, but still down on a few weeks ago because they did have quite the drop. And it shows my positions here sort of still down 60% on some of them. Helium doing a little better, but still 30% down. So I wouldn't quite call this alt season yet. I'm sort of in agreement with a lot of the other people that are saying we're not going to get rising tide lifts all boats. I think they'll lift strong boats, if you like. If you've got sort of revenue and genuine adoption and all that sort of thing, then people will sort of presumably pile in. But you're, some of your sort of more dead chains. Hate to sort of mention Cardano, but yeah, it doesn't look like there's much use of Cardano still at all, and it has sort of multi-billion, tens of billions of market cap. So yeah, not sure if like money automatically just goes into the older chains like that, but yeah, I think we could get some broadening outside of Bitcoin. So yeah, interesting. Let me know what you guys are up to at the moment, and like and subscribe. See you soon.